this morning is called Healing Happens. And there's a reason for that. And part of what I really want to call this title is balance, because it is all about balance. It's about us balancing who and what we are in the world every day, moment to moment. Because we come here on Sunday not to just escape for a few moments or to somehow pretend everything in the outer world doesn't exist. We come here to gain insight, to develop tools, to develop a sense of who we are in the world, so that when we're faced with a challenge in our lives day to day, we know how to call on that inner strength, on that inner truth that guides us, that leads us through whatever it is we need to move through in the world. So I want to start by sharing that the idea or the word healing is very controversial. Now you wouldn't think so, especially in a teaching such as ours, but I have to confess that our ministers worldwide always have this issue about healing, because what many believe, what most believe, and what I believe, certainly in many ways, is that healing is revealing. We don't heal anything. What we're really doing is revealing what already exists. So when you think about the idea of healing in the normal day-to-day world, most people think that it's fixing something, don't we? That we're making, if there's a cut, we're bringing it together and sewing it up. But that isn't healing, is it? That's just fixing. That's like the outer layer of what's going on. What we're really knowing is that there's something much deeper, something within that actually heals from the inside out. And so when we look at healing, that's what healing is really all about. It's healing from the inside out. So in truth, this idea of revealing spiritual wholeness is behind all of manifestation. When we look in the world, what we can know is that even though it may appear to be a certain way, there is potential for whatever that situation is to reveal its wholeness, to reveal its connection to the divine. So, and it extends beyond the physical body. I'm not just talking about physical healing either. I'm talking about the healing that occurs in our lives that has to do with our jobs, that has to do with our relationships, or any aspect of life that we encounter or that we experience moment to moment. Healing is really what happens in our own consciousness. Now, when I use the word consciousness, it is the conglomeration of all the thoughts and the patterns and the way that we've been thinking that has accumulated in us, so that everyone has a consciousness. And we also participate in the consciousness of a greater whole as well. So sometimes we're having this little duel with what the consciousness of the world appears to be, such as the financial situation today. That's the consciousness of the financial picture. But our consciousness is our way of perceiving that, plus all of the other thoughts that we've been thinking and how we reason with everything in the world. So it can be said then that our thought patterns or our consciousness is the medium between the absolute or this divine pattern and the relative, what we experience and see happens in the world. So think of it this way and ask yourself this question. What is being projected on my screen of consciousness? Okay? Now imagine whatever that is. What's the movie that's playing for you in your world all the time or most of the time? What is that projection of consciousness that you have created, that you've accumulated, that has been organized within your mind? And, if the screen is full of violence and trauma and terror and that, check your consciousness. Check out why that's all going on. What is appearing on that screen? Are you getting messages that are saying the glass is half empty instead of half full? Are you getting messages of peace, this wonderful, peaceful projection, so that everything that you're seeing and experiencing in the world appears to you to be peaceful? Or are you projecting an experience of drama, so that everything that you see and experience in the world has to become a drama? Otherwise, it's not interesting. It's not engaging. So look at what that screen is projecting for you. What's behind that? What are the thoughts in your consciousness that is creating that picture on the screen that becomes the experience that you have in life? So what this is really called, what Dr. Holmes calls this, is the veil. And of course, we take it out of the realm of moviedom back to the time of Dr. Holmes, where he calls this process of changing our consciousness lifting the veil. In other words, what we're doing is we're changing the pattern that we're projecting from our consciousness. And imagine it as a veil. The veil is what prevents us from experiencing an absolute experience of bliss and the experience that we're having in the world right now. So the veil is our perception, or the accumulation of all the things that are on that screen of consciousness which separates us and either allows us to feel or experience the presence of God within us and around us and through us, the sense of oneness, or it creates a sense of separation. So think about this idea of the veil, because what Dr. Holmes talked about many, many times is the thinness of the veil. The veil, he said, is thin between. Between what? Between the world of the divine and the world of our human experience. The veil is thin between. Yet, we tend to contribute such a consciousness to that idea of the veil that makes it opaque, that creates a sense of separation. Yet, in reality, when we clear our own consciousness, we literally take away that opaqueness and create such a thin line so that the veil becomes so thin, so transparent, that we're able to experience a sense of the divine as our human beingness. Anything that comes in between us and that sense of oneness challenges our faith. We become challenged in terms of what we really believe, don't we? Because when we feel separated, when that veil becomes opaque and we feel ourselves being human and literally standing on one side of a cement wall sometimes, where the divine is somewhere over there on the other side. Yet that cement wall was not created by anything except our consciousness. The thought patterns that we have accumulated and built up over the course of time, and that stands in our way. So Meister Eckhart said, there where our clinging to things ends is where God begins to be. So we're given a hint there. We're given a hint in terms of how to clear that up, how to move into that place where that wall starts to break down and the veil appears and becomes very thin. I want to follow that by a quote by Dr. Holmes. The soul touches both the inner realm of spirit, from which it derives divine inspiration, and the external world from which it receives impressions. See, we're receiving impressions from the external world, but the soul is also connected to the inner realm of spirit. But as we bring into expression the original purity of the divine consciousness, the soul is purified and established in its innocence. And see, that's what we're looking for. As the veil becomes thin, as that consciousness clears, our soul returns to its purified, innocent state. The secret, then, the big secret, is to be able to navigate, and I love that word, navigate, because it makes you feel powerful, like a captain on a ship. You navigate the world of effects between that and still staying in tune with the inner realm of spirit. So it's as though you're navigating with one foot in the realm of spirit and one foot in the realm of the divine. See, now why this is so important is that in any given time, if you're just waking up in the morning, or if you're in the middle of your job, or if your kids are giving you a hard time, or if your spouse is giving you a hard time, or whatever's going on, this is the leg, or no, wrong leg. This is the leg that is dealing with all of that that's happening in the outer world. But there's another leg that's firmly rooted in spirit, where you call on that. You can almost feel the energy, feel the wisdom, feel the guidance, balancing out what's going on in the outer world, so that you're receiving the guidance you need to deal with this, not in a reactive way, not in a way that wants you to have power over, but it gives you the power from within to stand in your light, to stand in your truth, to be in a place of loving consciousness, of loving awareness, so that whatever is happening in the world of effects, you know the right words, you know the right thoughts to think, you take the right actions, you take the appropriate steps that keeps that wonderful feeling of being rooted in spirit, of being and seeing the wholeness of the picture, not just that particular event, seeing the whole picture. Because those incidents, those tiny little incidents that somehow take us out of that place of bliss, what they do is they make you believe that that is the only incident that's ever taking place in the world at all. And you get so taken with that, so involved in it, so dedicated to resolving that particular thing that you think that that's all there is. And what does that do? It separates us. It creates another layer that separates us, that makes that veil become more opaque. So the veil amounts to all the stuff that we allow to mount up in our conscious awareness, and that make us forget that we are a part of this amazing wholeness. And what it indicates to us sometimes is that it makes us feel like we are a spare part. That's what we sometimes feel like we're a spare part, like we're the part that got left out somehow, that we're not a part of this bigger picture. So there's another phrase I want to bring into this, and it comes from Emma Curtis Hopkins, who is a deep, very wonderful metaphysical teacher who really taught from such a deep level of sacred knowing. And one of the phrases that she uses, which of course she wasn't the only one who did, but she uses the phrase, "let there be light." And let there be light, in her way of thinking, means let your reasoning be based in the highest truth. Let your reasoning be based in the highest truth. So when you're dealing with this person, think of the last time you had a little confrontation, or a little anxiety, or a little frustration, or a little confusion. How did your reasoning deal with that situation? Was it coming from the highest truth? Okay, be honest. Then that's what our challenge is. Are we able to call on that part of us where we're navigating between the world of the divine and the world of the human? Are we able to bring from that divine world into every moment, into the human world, the reasoning that comes from the highest truth, that comes from the highest idea, that speaks to us of love, that speaks to us of the highest good for everyone, win-win, that gives us the way to move through that situation, that empowers people. Think about a conversation that you had with an individual where perhaps you were resolving some differences. Or maybe you're the boss and you're talking to an employee and they've been really screwing up. Or you're talking to a child and the child has been really misbehaving. Or another situation where you just have to deal with an issue with someone. Here's the challenge for you. When you deal with that challenge, ask yourself, am I empowering this person? Because most of the time, we don't, do we? We tell them they're doing something wrong, they're hurting us, they're doing this, that, whatever, and what happens to them? They become disempowered. They become sad. They become frustrated, maybe even reactive. Now, come from the reasoning of the highest truth. What if we were to have that conversation with the intention of, yes, straightening out what was needed to be straightened out, of correcting the behavior or whatever it happens to be, but behind all of that, empowering them, giving them a sense of their own power, reconnecting them to know that they are a part of this divine source as well. Of course, we wouldn't say that out loud. We would just know that from within our own being. Empower everyone we talk to. Empower the situation, whatever it happens to be, because as we do that, we create the reason for people to support one another. You see where this is going? It has a reaction all through the universe. As we empower one another, we give everyone a reason for being, a sense of who we are, a connection to a deeper truth. So our mental activity determines our experience, and only our perceptions can take us beyond the veil, can make that veil very transparent. So ask ourselves, do any of these thought patterns come into play in our consciousness? Do any of these things happen on a regular basis? Is this something that has accumulated in our projection? And I'm going to read a list. So every time you hear something, ask yourself, is this a part of my projection? A part of the film that I'm projecting into my consciousness? Worry and fear. Jealousy. A need to control or have power over someone. Greed. Laziness. Stubbornness. False pride. All of those things are things that we buy into because, I don't know why. Why do we do that? Well, I think it's because it's a false sense of power. It's a false sense of making us feel like we temporarily have power in that situation. Yet, what those particular experiences do is they create a wall of separation. Healing happens. Healing happens when the veil becomes so thin that we are able to operate beyond these patterns, beyond them, in another realm. When we can objectively see that some attachment, now remember the Eckhart quote, some attachment to what's happening in the world, some attachment to an incident, a person, an idea, whatever it happens to be, some attachment is causing us to develop a pattern that is making the veil more opaque. So whatever we're doing in our lives, let us keep focused on the original intention. Wholeness, balance, loving consciousness, a sense of peace, empowerment for everyone we know and see in the world. Keep one foot in reality and one foot in the realm of spiritual awareness. And the more we dwell on that sense of loving goodness and harmony and peace and gentleness and sweetness in the world, the easier it is to see beyond the veil. Because don't you have that experience where when you're in that place of just absolute, complete comfort and bliss, and you're just balanced and there, and everything's beautiful and wonderful, and it wouldn't matter who showed up in your space, you'd think, what a loving individual that is. That's where we want to be. We want to know that it wouldn't matter who showed up in that space. We'd be able to look into the eyes of that person and say, what a loving individual that is. What a wonderful experience it is to be here in that space. That's where we're going. So healing is revealing the magnificence of who you are, regardless of the appearance, regardless of what we perceive to be in the outer world. We are loving who and what we are right now, right here. And what changes that is the accumulation of the consciousness that we project on our own screen of experience. And as we change that screen, as we change the contents of that consciousness, we literally create an opportunity for the veil between the spirit world and the human world to become so thin that they become one and the same. Healing is bringing every aspect of our physical being into alignment with the spiritual prototype that gave rise to our ability to express as human beings to begin with. So all it's doing is it's allowing us to bring into alignment that wonderful spiritual prototype that was here all along, that's behind everything that expresses in the world. So I want to close with a quote today from Paramahansa Yogananda, who was really, before Dr. Ernest Holmes, my first teacher in a way, because he was what really hooked me on thinking along these lines and truly brought me into a sense of knowing what that divine presence was really all about. When you go beyond the consciousness of this world, knowing that you are not the body or the mind, and yet aware as never before that you do exist. That divine consciousness is what you are. You are that in which is rooted everything in the universe. And I think the real key to this quote is in that first line. When you go beyond the consciousness of this world, aware as never before that you do exist. Because we do exist. We exist right here in the forms that we see, that we experience every moment. We exist as heads and hands and feet and the whole 9 yards. And all of that is pure consciousness. It's pure consciousness. The expression of the spiritual prototype being here in the universe, coming through as a divine expression of God, which is what you are. That I am in your presence, the divine expression of that